Hey you, yeah you, want to know how to do a beneficial ownership interest filing in order to be in compliance with the Corporate Transparency Act? Stay tuned to the end of the video, or if you really need to, just fast forward and I will show you step by step how to do your filing. But now, if you want to learn about the Corporate Transparency Act and what this is all about, keep watching. Hey you guys, let's talk about the Corporate Transparency Act, and as promised, later in the video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do your beneficial ownership interest filing. But before we get there, let me explain a little bit about what the Corporate Transparency Act is. So about several years ago, Congress was trying to figure out a way to be able to track who owns the majority ownership, or at least what they now refer to as a beneficial ownership interest in corporations, so that way they will be able to figure out exactly where money is going in and out of these companies. And the entire goal and purpose of this act, as stated by Congress on numerous occasions, was to try to stop the spread of money laundering and other illegal acts that people were using U.S. companies in order to do. And so what they came up with was the Corporate Transparency Act. Now, the reason that this is a thing that they're doing is that states do not necessarily report the ownership of the companies registered within their states to the federal government. So if you create a company in Massachusetts, for example, and you have no other need or reason to register with an agency of the federal government has no idea, number one, that your company exists outside of maybe the IRS when you file taxes, and they have absolutely no idea of who is involved in that company. The number of shareholders or members, if it's an LLC, who the officers are, anything. They don't know anything, to be perfectly honest. And so that's where the Corporate Transparency Act comes in. And it is a thing that now requires the beneficial owners of companies. And to be perfectly honest, it is most companies. There are a few exceptions, but most of those exceptions don't apply to most companies. So what we're dealing with right now is an act that requires voluntary registration with the federal government in order to tell them who is a beneficial owner of the company, or who are the beneficial owners of a company if there are more than one that fit the definition as according to the act. Now, the thing that you need to know about this is that, number one, yes, it's voluntary, but number two, if you don't do your filing within the allotted time given to you by the government, you can be fined up to $500 per day for all the days that you do not do your filing. Let's talk about what these deadlines are. Number one, if you have a company that you have formed prior to January 1st, 2024, you have until the end of December of January 2024 to do your filing. However, if you have created a company that is formed January 1st, 2024 or later, so pretty much from now on until the future, you have 90 days after the date of incorporation in order to do your beneficial ownership interest filing. Those deadlines are very important, so you want to make sure to keep those in mind. Now, the other thing that you need to know about this is who is a beneficial owner as defined by the statute. I'm going to oversimplify this because we don't need to get into all the technical details for circumstances that probably don't apply to most people. So for our purposes, we're going to say that a beneficial owner is anyone who owns 25% or more of a company, whether it's an LLC, a corporation, whatever. It doesn't matter if you're a C corporation or an S corporation, that's irrelevant. 25% or more ownership. So if you have, let's say, 4 people who own a company equally, all 4 of those people will have to be put down as beneficial owners because they own 25, 25, 25, and 25 to add up to 100. If, for example, you have a company that has, let's say, you own 50%, someone else owns 30%, and then you have a couple of people that own 10% and 10%. Well, those last 2 people don't actually need to be put down as beneficial owners because they don't meet the requirement. Now, again, there are some technicalities where that might happen, but for most people, you can really just go with the 25% or more ownership. And that's pretty much all you need to know right now at this moment about the whole Corporate Transparency Act beneficial ownership interest filing. So the next thing I'm going to do is walk you through the steps of doing a beneficial ownership interest filing. And you'll see that it's actually really easy, really straightforward, and honestly should only take you maybe 10 minutes or so at the most in order to fill it out, assuming you have all the information that you need ready to go when you actually click and log on. So let's do that now. On the FinCEN Beneficial Ownership Interest Reporting website. And technically we're on fincen.gov, and I'll put the link in the description below so that you can just click on it and go straight to it if this is something you need to do. We're just going to go straight to this first option here where it says file a report using the BOI e-filing system. We don't need to create a FinCEN ID. It's actually going to happen as a part of this process anyway, so no reason to click on that. We're going to click here to file a report, and then it brings you to two options: either file the BOI reporting or the Bank Secrecy Act reporting. I'm positive that you're not watching this video if you need to do a BSA e-filing, so let's talk about and do the BOI e-filing. And after you click that, it brings you to another page, and it gives you several different options of what to do. You can file it via filing a PDF that has all the information filled out in the form, or you can do the online, or you can do a system-to-system API. That's not anything that you're doing if you're watching this video. Again, that's for companies that want to integrate with the system so that people can use, their customers can use their platforms in order to do their BOI filing. That's nothing you need to worry about. So we're going to do the file online. So prepare and submit BOIR, and then it's going to, I've already been here, so it gave me the little notice that you're leaving the FinCEN website, but you might get that when you click it your first time. So it gives you several options here: initial report, correct a prior report, update a prior report, or a newly exempt entity. And so I, like most people, are going to be filing an initial report, but keep in mind that if you do need to make a correction, you would use this to do a correction. And additionally, as the beneficial owners in your company change over time, if someone leaves the company and they don't have 25% ownership anymore, or someone joins and they do get 25% or more ownership, you need to actually update the form in order to keep the government apprised of who the beneficial owners are in the company at any given time. Similarly, if you change your address or other issues like that, you have to come back in and do an update. So date prepared, it's auto-filled for March 3rd, which is today. And then it gives you the Privacy Act and Paperwork Reduction Act notice. I'm not going to go through that. You can read that if you want. And then it drops us into the page where we can start doing our filing. I'm going to click the request to receive a FinCEN ID. That will make it easier to do updates in the future, even though for my company, I'm doing it for my law firm. I'm using that as the example. To be perfectly honest, there's no reason I foresee in the future that I would have to update this other than an address change. So I'll grab a FinCEN ID for the company so that way I'll be able to take care of this later in the future if I do have to do that. Reporting company legal name. And of course, in all these spaces, you'll type in the appropriate information for your company. I'm going to skip over some of this stuff in the video during editing so that way it speeds through a little quicker. Number 7, tax ID type. You have options of an EIN, an SSN, or an I-10, or foreign identification filing. If you're a U.S. company, most likely you have an EIN. That's exactly what I have, so you'll put that in. Your tax ID number without any spaces or dashes in it, just put the number in straight on. And if it's a foreign tax ID number, you would select the country, but because that wasn't selected as an option, it's not possible to click on it now. The country or jurisdiction of formation, in my case, it's the United States of America. Then it asks for the state, and I am in Massachusetts. And there's no tribal jurisdiction or name of tribe. Of course, if that applies to you, then so be it. And then it asks for the current U.S. address. And of course, I'll skip past that a little bit after I enter that. And so after you've entered your address and everything else, you'll click next, go to the next screen. Then it's going to get to asking if it's an existing reporting company. And this is for a company that was created prior to January 1st, 2024, as I mentioned in the introduction to the video. Now, if you are needing to do a brand new filing for a company that started after January 1st, 2024, you would not click this box, and therefore it would ask you for all the information on here. However, in my case, I will click the box because my company was formed prior to January 2024. And in that case, it does not actually ask you to enter the information for a company applicant. But again, if you're filing yours created after January 1st, 2024, you will not click this box, and then you will enter all the information as requested on the form. Now, one thing that you should be aware of is that when you are entering all the information and it's asking for the identification of the person who is completing the form, one of the things that you may as well have ready when filling it out is a picture of a government issued photo ID. And this needs to be yours, you, the person filling out this form. And so that's the one thing that's a little different that I should point out, is that when you're filling in all this information, it will ask you for that. And then once you've entered all that information, you'll click next again. And now this is where it gets to the actual important part of this. The whole purpose of this is entering the information of the beneficial owners, anyone who owns 25% or more of the company, with certain exceptions. But again, we're not getting into the weeds here. This is just meant to be a quick demo of what you need to do. So there's no parent guardian info being included here instead of a minor child. I do not have a FinCEN ID yet. I'll get that at the end of this once the filing is done. I'm not an exempt entity. That would be something like a bank or some other heavily regulated entity. Those are the ones in general that don't have to do this. But otherwise, I'm just going to scroll down and fill in this information, and then we'll fast forward a little bit after I've done that to show you the next step. Okay, so we entered our relevant information in addition to uploading a photo ID, just like what was required for the person who was completing the form. And then it asked for the name, address, birth date, as well as a photo ID of each beneficial owner. And so I entered that in the prior step. So now we're going to continue on. All right, so in the previous step, I entered all the information for myself as the beneficial owner, and it asks you for the person's name, date of birth, address, as well as a photo ID for each beneficial owner. So again, things you want to have there and ready and in place before you do this filing, because you don't want to have to stop and start everything. If you're doing it for multiple people, let's say one person is doing the filing for multiple people, you'll need to have everyone's name, birth date, address, and a picture of their government issued photo ID, as well as whatever identification number is on that to be able to enter it. You want to have all that stuff in place before you actually start this process, so that way you don't have to stop and start and everything in order to do it. So now I'm just going to enter my email address and then confirm it, my name. All right, so we click off here. It says that, yes, I'm the person, I'm certified to do it. Click the thing that says I'm a human. Probably gonna have to, oh good, I didn't have to do anything. And then submit BOIR. And wait a second. Now it's doing the processing. We wait a moment. The filing is successful. All right, and that's it. Very simple, very easy, very straightforward. I hope that you found that helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe, leave a comment. All of those things really help to make sure that this channel gets seen by as many people as possible and can grow, and all those other great things. So thanks for sticking around, and until next time, this is the Boston Startup Lawyer signing off.